Hello, everybody. That's right. It's another episode of This Week in Indiana Football. If you haven't heard from us in quite some time, I believe we haven't released an episode since the end of last football season. I'm your host, John Alden, alongside as always, Dustin Schutte, still from Outsider.com, and the walk-on turned scholarship superstar, Mitchell Page, is with us from Raleigh, North Carolina today. The ever-traveling Mitchell Page. And it's obviously, I mentioned, I hate doing intros. First of all, you all know I hate doing intros. There's a lot that has happened in terms of the way we think, or the things I've been thinking about in regards to this podcast and Indiana football in general, and the direction that myself and Dustin and Mitchell wanted this show to go. And that's kind of the main reason that we're releasing this today, is that there's some things we want to get into about the future and things that we're excited about changing with the show. And I'm not going to dive into all those things right now. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get further into it. But yeah, how you guys doing, Dustin? Dustin, obviously see you quite a bit on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Mitchell, I haven't talked to you. We talk in text all the time, but we haven't spoken since last year, right?
Yeah, it's at least face to face like this. It's been way too long. I've been busy, as you said, on the road, getting married, going on honeymoons, playing golf, new job. I'm all over the place. I apologize. I should have reached out earlier, but I'm excited to be with you guys again.
Now, what are you doing in Raleigh? And then Dustin, we'll get to you.
Yeah, I'm selling cosmetic lasers, body contouring. So I'm letting you hang out on the bed, getting you a 6-pack, like melting fat. It's all good stuff.
Melting fat.
I don't want to bore you with the laser talk, but I can talk all day. It's pretty sick, actually. A much larger market than I would have ever guessed. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but I was in ortho sales for a number of years way back when. And obviously that's a big market. People are getting their knees, hips, shoulders replaced all the time. And I just had no idea that the aesthetic industry was as big and growing as fast as it is. So it's been really fun to get to know the industry. A nice change. I'm on the road all the time, North and South Carolina. So I'm not just coming to you live from Charleston anymore. I'll be in Raleigh one day, Charlotte one day, Charleston, Columbia, South Carolina, all over the place. So getting to see a lot of the Southeast, which is really fun.
So is it possible that I can get a 6-pack via a laser and I don't have to go to my kickboxing class in the morning?
Yeah, it is. It's not like a magic bullet, but if you eat okay and you go through a couple treatments of this, yeah, you'll see some results. I use it on myself, and yeah, I'm telling you. You guys come on down here. I'll show you.
Speaking of on the road, Dustin, you've relocated again yourself too, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm up in. Yep, I've moved to Brownsburg from Gainesville, Florida. So it's back. Yep, big news. Back up in the home state, the Hoosier state. So it's fun. I've been looking forward to getting my hands on a breaded tenderloin. I've not done that. Mitchell probably knows it's not very popular in the South. Like, food is fantastic in the South, and it trumps a lot of Midwestern food, but at the same time, I just want a breaded tenderloin sandwich. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that.
One ever down here, not one.
I've told this story on Indiana Sports Beat before, but there was a place when I lived in Atlanta. There was a food truck, and I think the name of it was called Hoosier Pork Tenderloin. Like, that was the name of the food truck, and that was what they specialized in. I don't know if the people were from Indiana, just found like a niche market or whatever it is. But that was the only place I could get them. Any place else didn't have them. So it's a delicacy up here.
Take it for granted.
Exactly. Never again.
What about you, John? What's Mitchell, new with you, man?
What's new with me? I tell you what. In terms of my job, I don't think anything's really that new. I do. Oh, I guess since at least in terms of people who listen to this podcast and maybe don't also listen to Indiana Sports Beat, I do an afternoon show with somebody in the Louisville market called Coffee and Company, which is pretty fun. Do that from 3 to 6 every day. talk a lot of U of L sports. They're super excited about Jeff Brom coming into town, the alumni, the first family of Louisville football. So, and obviously Indiana gets to play Louisville and Jeff Brom this year in Lucas Oil Stadium. So that will be an interesting time for me, considering I have not really stake in both teams, but I associate myself with both sides of that game. So looking forward to seeing that when it comes around, and also just thinking about what else to do with my free time in terms of this kind of stuff, because I hate that I've neglected putting together more episodes of this. And a few months ago, Dustin and I got talking about what the future should look like for this podcast, or what's actually going to happen. And that is This Week in Indiana Football, like as you know it, as if this is some big, we're nobodies, right? We're not going to do this podcast.
Basically, what John and I realized was that there's not enough white people doing podcasts, so we wanted to really hit that market hard.
Yeah, right. That's just
well, here's the thing. I love
three random white dudes just talking. There's not enough of that out there.
Set aside the
first to the podcast deal, man. We're the first ones, and we're just trend setters.
Yeah. Well, it's what I love to do. This is what I went to school for, not for podcasting specifically, but to sit behind a microphone and do something with it, whether that be live radio, podcasting, commercials. I've dabbled in a little bit of all of it. I kind of do a little bit of all of it right now. But what we want to do is, instead of being solely focused on Indiana football, and obviously, no matter what we do, based on the nature of who's doing this, there's always going to be an Indiana football flavor. We're always going to have thoughts on what's going on. But what I've noticed, at least in the first two years of doing this podcast, is that, and it's not even just about noticing, it's about feeling it. It's so horrible to have to come on here and react to garbage for the second half of a season. And it becomes more like a chore. And yeah, we made it fun. We found ways to make it work. And, you know, it was a great experience making myself push through, even when it wasn't fun to do it. Even though it was always fun talking with you, it was always hard to be like, man, we've got another week of talking about who Indiana is going to get their behinds beat by once again. And so essentially what we're doing is opening the door to talking about a bunch of other things. And for those of you who listen to Indiana Sports Beat, specifically the segments when Dustin and I have been hosting while Jim has been out doing something, or, you know,
sleeping past his alarm.
Sleeping past his alarm. You know, there's tons of things that we could get into with that, but we always loved that we would just kind of veer off into any topic we would want. We would typically talk about the things that, like, if there was a big headline regarding Indiana basketball or something like that, we would lean into that a little bit. But we almost always started with just simple things, like silly things, and sometimes things that maybe didn't pertain to sports at all. And not that this isn't going to be a sports podcast, because it is, but anytime Dustin and I, it seems like whether we're talking with Jim or interacting with the listeners on Indiana Sports Beat, there's been a lot of times where it seems like we're not up with the culture, the pop culture, or, you know, something that may have been a big thing a couple of years ago, or even 20 to 30 years ago. Usually he and I don't have a clue what he's talking about, whether it's a movie reference or a quote from something. And so we came up with this idea to call this podcast that's coming up after this Out of Touch. And I honestly, even up into the point of today when we're recording this podcast, I didn't know if I really wanted to go through with that name, because I feel like that phrase out of touch has so many negative connotations. But I think that can actually make this pretty cool if we can take something like that and kind of give it a more positive and more of a silly spin on it. I hope it doesn't sound too wimpy, but that's kind of the way that I think about that.
Yeah, I think calling it out of touch is basically just saying we're three idiots. It's not that we say stuff that is like controversial or I mean, I just don't picture Dustin grittying to pick up his mail. Like he's just not with the pop culture. So I think I mean, if you've listened to this podcast in the past, you know that I mean, we're not like valedictorians.
We're not trying to act like we're a bunch of Mikey Corsies.
Look, so I mean, absolutely. I like it. And it gives, I think we got off the rails a bunch anyways last year.
We had to.
And I think that having a football focus, obviously I'm extremely passionate about the Hoosiers. I will come on here and we will talk just like we used to, but not having it be This Week in Indiana Football, where it feels like, okay, we're kind of off the rails. Let's steer it back. Now let's get off the rails and see where the train goes. I'm really excited. If you know me at all, you know my brain wanders. So I'm kind of nervous to see where we go with this, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Speaking of minds wandering, I just want to say that people that are just listening to this will not be able to see it, but this lives up to what we're trying to do, in that behind me, my ceiling fan is going, and I'm trying to center my head.
I've been watching
it spinning top.
So it looks like one of those rotating spinner hats that people wear, like just sitting on top of my head. And that's what I've been trying to do, and I don't know if anybody picked up on that or not.
No, I love it.
I'm just, people can't
all I've
see
seen
it.
You do listening. Is move your head around, and it works backwards, so you're going the wrong. Yeah, I've been noticing that. I thought you were just having like some kind of weird reaction or something.
The other thing I wanted to add to this, John, was one of the things. I think I texted you immediately after this happened, but there was one day when Jim couldn't make it onto a show, and this was when I was co-hosting every day. And it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes before we were supposed to start. And we were both, in our little, what's this called?
These little boxes.
This StreamYard. We were in StreamYard. And you were like, what the hell are we going to talk about? And I said, I went jean shopping yesterday. And so for an entire segment, we talked about jean shopping and then vinyl records. We got as much interaction. This was in the heart of basketball season too, and we got as much interaction with that.
This was right after the Arizona trip, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think Jim was on tired, jet lag. That could be it too. But we got as much interaction with that conversation in 15, 20 minutes as we did in with Indiana basketball stuff. And that's when I sent a text and said, if we're going to do a podcast, that's what I want it to be. Just, what did we do? And we can carry on a conversation for 15 or 20 minutes. And I think that we have the trio here to be able to be ridiculous, provide some insight. Mitchell's been in a college football locker room. John and I have been on the journalistic side of things. I think we can provide some unique perspective in an entertaining fashion, but also understanding that we a lot of times also have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's kind of, somebody might be thinking like, what the hell are you going to talk about then if you're just going to goof off? Because we're going to have a good time with that kind of stuff. And we definitely don't take ourselves too seriously, but like you're going to see us reacting to things that are happening, particularly in sports first, because we know that's most of our wheelhouses. We know that's where most of the audience that's already here, the things that you're grounded in. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this announcement over the football podcast, because even though we don't have, thousands of listeners or anything like that, those of you who do listen, I don't want you to feel like that we're just saying, screw it, we're not talking Indiana football anymore, they suck. That's not what we're here to do. We want you to come along with us, because we're still going to talk about football. We're still going to talk about sports in general. We're just going to talk about a bunch of other things alongside that, and likely talk about our ridiculous takes on things that are going on in the sports world and in our personal lives. I don't want us to be afraid to share what's like some ridiculous encounter we may have had in our real life. I'm actually going to share a story real quick, just an example of something that we may talk about in the future. But I was driving home from downtown, a couple of months ago. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I want us to be able to go into this kind of territory in the future. And working in downtown Louisville, is not it's not the booming metropolis that some people may think it is. And not that I'm trying to say that people think it's like New York City or anything like that. But Louisville, ever since the pandemic, has honestly become a lot more, I don't want to say horrible of a city, but it's a lot more run down. There's a lot more homeless people running around, and it is what it is. But just to and mind you, I've only been working downtown. I haven't been downtown for less than a year. We used to work more like in the suburbs for our radio stations. But on my way home, there was a guy who on the sidewalk near a gas station was walking butt-ass naked and not having a care in the world. And it's just one of those things like whenever, so I was at a traffic light, right? About to turn, and then right after that, get on to the exit to get on the interstate. And I see this guy. I'm not looking for it, obviously, but when I turn, you see that you turn twice, and this guy was like doing stretches, and I didn't have time to see what more this guy was going to do. But what is it? What are you supposed to do?
Did you get the text I just sent? I'm sorry,
No,
I sent that text. I shouldn't have sent that text. That was a bad text to send. We're not even going to give any context. This is terrible radio. Terrible radio.
And it's okay. Here's the thing. The goal for this, and this is, we're kind of going as we said earlier, off the rails. One thing, we're going to keep doing this podcast even after football. So this isn't just going to be a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to get better at this. We're not going to take long breaks from it. We may take, short breaks for holidays and stuff like that. Just to give ourselves the time to, those kinds of things.
I want this to be a regular thing. This is like my favorite, whether anybody listens to it or not. And listeners, I love you very much. And please send me a message on Twitter. Tell us what you think about the show. But even if no one listened, I still have a blast. And that's being able to do that, talk about whatever. I think that's what makes it different. And what makes it unique is I think you guys probably feel the same way. You listen to podcasts all the time where it feels like they're just doing a job. And I feel like we're just kind of hanging out. And some of
that's what I want this to be. And I hope that story wasn't too weird, but I have shared that before.
As long as the guy wasn't
on the afternoon show. No, it wasn't me. There's actually, so it's funny. The next day, there was I don't know if it was an Instagram reel or a TikTok that somebody had sent me, and it was the same guy. Somebody had filmed him walking across a crosswalk, and I was like, that's the exact same guy that I saw walking down.
So this guy just walks around Louisville naked?
No, so first of all, I don't think that he himself was homeless. He looked like the kind of person who was doing a walk of shame. Maybe his girlfriend had kicked him out, clothingless.
And didn't let him get his clothes. Hold on. Time out. First of all, let me go back to the text message Mitchell
I'm not embellishing any of this. And even if we have to after the show, I'll send you the video of this guy.
No, I believe you.
I don't need to see the video, number one. Number two, the reason I laughed so hard at that text that Mitchell sent, and I'm not going to say what it said, is because I was thinking the exact same
I know you were. I saw your mind. And if anyone is up to date in the sports world currently, it is July 11th.
Yep.
If you listen to the story, you know what we're talking about. But I'm not going to say it on here.
No.
We're out of touch with the current events. I'm not going to say it on here. This is terrible, terrible radio. You just have to get with the times, people.
Now, here's the question. Walk of shame. Walk of shame is not naked. Walk of shame is same clothes. So you think
what is this? What do we call it then if this isn't a walk of shame?
Is it possible for a guy to have a walk of shame?
Why else?
That's another good question.
That was the reason that I brought this up on the show was we wanted to figure out what the heck is this guy doing naked downtown, especially if he's not homeless. And he didn't look homeless. There's
I feel like cocaine was involved.
Yeah, it's called drugs, John.
Yeah, but this is
do you think he was normal walking down the street? Like
you just have to see this video.
Sometimes you gotta get some sun down there. Like you don't think he was just going to work?
Look,
what do you think happened?
He was also trying to cover himself up too, if that says anything.
I want to hear what John thinks led to that.
Was there?
This is just a normal guy. Yeah.
I think maybe he had a bad incident with his woman or whatever partner of his choice might have been.
I mean, that's a bad incident. Can you
Again,
imagine?
and we're probably talking about something that many of you have no idea what I'm even talking about, and you may even think I'm lying about it. If that's the case, but that's fine.
We're going to provide a link in these. Like we could provide
link in the description below.
Exactly.
I guess we can do that. Yeah. So if I'm able to find a link to put onto the,
I don't think you can post a video of a naked guy on YouTube.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
You can do that.
If you're interested and you want to challenge the credibility of this, just look on Instagram Reels or TikTok.
But I have a question. But see, this is what makes it interesting to me. So he was like, it's funnier to me that he was attempting to cover himself up. Like,
what does he use it?
And at least that's in the video. So like when I saw him, he was like stretching. In the video, he's walking across the crosswalk, holding his junk.
I'm telling you this, man. Did you ever have the DARE program? My guy did not have DARE when he was growing up. He did not resist drugs.
Maybe the drogas were involved.
Los drogas. Yeah, that would be my first guess. It's not very typical for a guy with a job to just be time to go to work. You know,
walking around. Doing calisthenics out in the.
I'm not wearing clothes today. I'm not wearing.
Should we move forward? I don't know if I want to apologize for sharing that story or not. I do think that was
no. I think
I have a story we can talk about, and my wife Laura can attest. She was in the car when this happened. There is also video of this. We were driving to work for a short period. Her and I worked at the same place in Charleston, and we were driving to work together. It's like 8 in the morning, 8:15 in the morning, something like that. And there's a road that goes through downtown Charleston, crosstown. It's the busiest road in the morning in the whole city. 2 lanes, traffic everywhere. Everybody's in a bad mood. It's like, I think a Monday or Tuesday. So what we talked about earlier, everybody's miserable. Stop and go traffic, car in front, right next to me, and then car behind him. Car in front not going as fast, I guess, as the guy behind him wants him to go. So he's honking at him. Car in front getting madder and madder. Like, I can't go anywhere. There's a car in front of me. Car behind doesn't care. Honking his horn. Guy in front brake checks him. There's almost a collision. Not a collision. Guy behind laying on his horn. Minute straight. Ripping. Guy in front losing his mind. Gets out of the car. Starts yelling at the guy behind. Guy behind gets out of the car. Yelling at each other again. They stop communicating. No words are said like, let's go. Or they're just like, you need to drive. No, you need to stop honking. Stop talking to each other. Come together in the middle of the road before work. Fist fight. In the middle of the road, they're just throwing haymakers at each other. No one is getting out of the car to stop this fight.
I wouldn't.
So, naturally, I put myself in the first immediate danger I can find. Get out of the car. Walk over to them. Separate this fight. They're gushing blood, bleeding. Like, guys, we need to go to work. You cannot be fighting. That was my solution. So they actually do. They get back in their car. They're just bleeding everywhere. And there's a video of these 2 guys fighting and me getting out yelling, hey, hey. So if you want to call me a hero, you can. But that's the kind of stuff that's going on in our lives, and that's what I want to talk about.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Some heroes are midgets. Some guys are under 5 feet tall.
Do you know where this video exists?
I can find it. I can find it.
Oh, and this is you? You said you pulled in.
I didn't take the video. This is someone from across, like the road is separated by a median. They're across the median taking a video of this, like, welcome to Charleston, y'all. And then me.
So it's funny. The crosswalk video says like "Welcome to Louisville" or something. The one with the naked guy that I was talking
100%.
about.
Yeah, same kind of video. No one, like the person taking the video, doing nothing to stop this fight.
See,
if you see the fight, like, these people cannot be fighting. Can you imagine this guy? I mean, he is leaking blood. The dude behind was a 25-year-old super fit dude. Guy in front is 60. This is not like a fair – I mean, just haymakers to this old guy's face. He's just leaking blood, gets back in his car, and he's going to work at as an accountant or something.
Can you imagine showing
go
up
like the desk and his tie is bloody? The boss is like, what? Yeah, what are you doing?
What happened? What happened?
Tough morning. It's
not a big deal. Got in another fist fight.
Yeah,
maybe that's right. Maybe that's just a normal Tuesday for that guy. He's like, yeah. I'm just not going fast ever again.
No,
I'm going to piss off the entire. What's amazing to me is I have been to Charleston. It's been a while since I've been to Charleston, and I was most recently in Louisville for a birthday celebration doing the Bourbon Trail, and I saw no naked people and I saw no fist fights.
Well, did you go downtown?
Yeah.
Yes, in both places. Charleston. I stayed downtown in Charleston. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it's where is it 25 Prime Grill or 252 Prime Grill or something downtown Charleston?
I eat chicken nuggets, dude. I have no idea.
Well, McDonald's is always good, and they're always open, so that's good. That's good. Yep. It was like Prime 252. I can't remember what the name. 225, maybe Prime. I'm just going to throw out a bunch of numbers. I know it had a 2 and a 5 in it.
If anybody is listening, that's like one of the most famous restaurants in Charleston, and I don't know what it's called.
It's the best steak I've ever had in my life. St. Elmo's number 2.
Speaking of steak, I know you posted this recently, Dustin. Didn't you get all dolled up as you made a homemade steak just because you felt like you had to respect?
Just a phenomenal pick.
You ate it? No, I didn't make it. No, that was from a year ago. So what happened was, are you guys iPhone people?
No.
Of course. No, I know you're not. That's why I have green bubbles. It's very annoying.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
very annoying.
So what happened was a year ago, I went out and had a steak dinner at the nicest place in Gainesville called Embers. Had an appetizer of fried gator tail, steak, and then I think I ordered dessert. And I got dressed up in a shirt and tie. And if you swipe to the left on your iPhone on the home screen, sometimes it'll bring up old pictures. Well, that picture of me popped up from a year ago, and I did not post it to Instagram. And what am I doing if I'm not posting all of my pictures to Instagram? So I decided, hey, I look good. This is the last time I've been dressed up. I've been dressed up a total of 4 times in the last 5 years. I'm going to throw it up there. So I did not make that steak. I went out and got dressed up just for the steak, so it would know how much I would appreciate it.
Well, there you go. You got to show some appreciation for your steak.
To dress up for steak?
That's just
do you not get dressed? Do you seriously not go out to like a nice restaurant? Like not all the time, but like a couple times a year, you and Laura don't go out?
But I don't own a suit.
Well, I didn't wear a suit. It was just a shirt and tie and khakis. Oh. I was like Jake from like a nicer version of Jake from State Farm.
This is about as nice as I get. And everything I wear was given to me. Like everything has a little IU on it because it was free.
Do you wear the backwards baseball hat too?
That was just my golf hat.
Oh,
I think if Indiana, the backwards hat, first of all, reminded me. Anytime somebody wears a backwards hat, especially people who have facial hair, I immediately think of Fred Durst, Limp Bizkit. I think.
Oh boy,
I think Mitchell. Come on, bro. Maybe we should all do it. If Indiana goes to a bowl game this year, we should all do backwards hat Fred Durst look with the what do they call it? What's the soul patch?
Soul patch. Oh soul God. Patch.
I'll be you want to talk about the naked guy, I'll be standing right with him. If we want to get into Indiana football.
You can wear your base.
I'll be running around Louisville because that means we somehow beat Louisville.
That's true.
I'll be running around downtown Louisville. Right with them. Stretch.
Baseball hat using as a as coverage.
No, straight backwards.
Straight backwards. All right, I can dig it. The problem is my beard is patchy enough, but I look like about 15 if I shave it. So that's a problem for me.
Yeah.
But here's what I thought. So I don't know if you get this comparison, but I think that Mitchell looks like him, and people tell me that I look like him too. But I think Mitchell looks more like him. I get a Josh Allen comparison very frequently.
100%. I look at TV sometimes, and I'm like, why am I on TV?
Yeah,
I swear.
Okay. See, I don't think that about myself. I thought that about Mitchell, but people have sent me messages and they're like, I never realized how much you look like Josh Allen. I'm like, I really don't think I do, but okay. I'll
Other
take
than
it.
him being really tall, athletic, and rich, we're the same guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Same guy.
I'm basically Josh Allen if he didn't play football.
And he was a podcaster because oh boy.
See, this is Mitchell right here. Yes.
I can see that. That kind of has a Mitchell look to it right there.
Usually
one of the pictures of him, it's not this one. This is like a recent. He was in an interview. It was weird.
Was he wandering around the streets of Louisville naked?
Yeah.
See,
Anyway,
usually
those
I
of
get
you
the
on
comparison.
Spotify can't see what we're looking at right now. I'm basically just scrolling through Google Images, looking at different photos of Josh Allen.
Just Google
Thankfully,
Mitchell's.
He's not nude in any of them.
Just Google Mitchell's. What was it? 2016? Was that your last year at IU?
I don't know.
Do a comparison.
I don't know.
I'm gonna be 30 in 8 days. That's crazy.
So just Google Mitchell's IU photo and then Josh Allen, and then I only get the comparison. Really,
I didn't know you were a war hero, Mitchell.
Wow. That guy is sick. Actually, do some research on this guy, the hero of Guadalcanal. He fended off like 10 million Japanese soldiers by himself.
How about that?
Medal of Honor.
I don't even know what I'm looking for here. These are all. Oh, here we go. What about this?
Oh, there we go. Let's bring that back. Eminem.
That's my favorite hair I've ever had. It's not even close. People make fun of me for that. That thing is sweet.
I think you need to bring it back.
Why is it gone? It was actually way more expensive than I was ready for. And when we went to, what? Yes. It's like $300. I was just trying to make myself laugh. And then they said the price at the end. I said, well, this isn't very funny anymore. But they did do a good job.
This took a turn to serious town.
Yeah, wait a minute. You also had a nice, if you were watching on YouTube, you had a nice picture of my grandpa right there. Did you see that?
I did.
The guy with a little button on the side of his head. That's my grandpa.
Shout out Grandpa Page, if his last name is Page.
Grandpa Wilson.
Grandpa Wilson, okay.
Yeah, my mom's dad.
There we go. I guess we don't want to keep these too long. Here's another thing. I don't know if we mentioned this earlier. A couple more things before I forget them. One, we're going to try and keep all of the new episodes, the out of touch episodes, somewhere within the 40 to 45 minute range. Not just because we don't want to talk forever, but it's just like we're kind of looking for like whenever we're listening to stuff, what do we enjoy in terms of length? What's a reasonable amount of time? That's kind of what we think is.
It feels like talking about length and the naked guy in the same conversation. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
doesn't mesh well.
Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. Second thing. Oh yeah, the first out of touch episode. This is, I want to say it's pretty, I mean, it's tentative because you never know what might come in the way, but we are aiming to release it on Tuesday, August 2nd. So this will probably, this week in Indiana football, whenever you're listening to it, I believe I'm going to release it at the latest Friday, July 14th. So in about 3 weeks or so is when we will release the first out of touch episode. And then from then on, it's going to be weekly. We're going to try to do this as often as we can, and I think we're going to have a good time with it. But while we still have some time, if we dare jump into these waters right now, the Indiana football waters, do we want to share what we think is going to happen, what we hope will happen? Obviously, we can all just, in terms of the hope, we just hope for at least for improvement for one. I'm sure we're all in agreement with that. Dustin, I know you're a Purdue fan, and you don't have to have your thoughts on Indiana football if you don't want to, like for what you hope they do. But
so in my career, thank goodness for the mute button. In my career, and when you cover all 14 teams, people don't legitimately believe me. But I didn't care who won. But I think what's a lot of fun and what makes college football so unique is I love watching a program being built. Like, I love seeing guys that take over struggling programs. Like, yeah, it's cool to see Ryan Day take over at Ohio State and then be awesome. Yeah, that's great. James Franklin at Penn State, but those teams are traditional. Like I love to see Brett Bielema build up Illinois. I love to see PJ Fleck go in and make Minnesota a contender. I like to see what Kevin Wilson did at Indiana. That's a lot of fun to me. So I do want to see Indiana bounce back because I think that was, first of all, it's better for the Big Ten. When you have teams that are of better quality from top to bottom, it makes the league stronger. And then it's more entertaining. You're going to get more entertaining games. Nobody wants to watch Indiana, Ohio State in the middle of November when it's raining and they're losing 49-3 in the middle of the third quarter. Like, that's not fun for anybody. So I want to see Indiana bounce back. I don't even know what an expectation. Like, I feel like you look at that schedule, I feel like 5 wins would be a major accomplishment and would probably save Tom Allen's job. They just have been so bad the last 2 years that it feels like they have to do something, make some substantial progress, be competitive in at least some of those games where they're like, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. And if they can do that, maybe there's some hope for the future. But I don't know. With the transfer portal, with name, image, and likeness, we've talked about this. It's an uphill battle for not only Tom Allen, but whoever is the head coach at Indiana.
Yeah, I think, and I'll get to Mitchell here in a second too. I think what you're saying makes sense in some ways because you say 5 and 7. I do a lot of media outlets this year have said Indiana once again. I feel like I might add has the toughest overall schedule from top to bottom, whether it be non-conference or conference schedule for the Big Ten. And you went 4-8 last year. I know that's not good. And especially in regard to where they were a few years ago when things were on the uptick. From 4-8 to 5 and 7, to me, yeah, I guess technically that is improvement. But I think there are enough teams on the schedule that you should be competitive with. And again, we don't really know, first of all, who the quarterback's going to be. We have an idea of who it might be. But until we see whatever this puzzle is that Tom Allen and Walt Bell are trying to piece together, it's really hard to say who they can beat, who they should beat, who they can be competitive with. And it's, I would say, fairly obvious who should beat them. But I think outside of the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, and even Wisconsin, I think just about everybody else on that schedule, and that includes Louisville, that includes Maryland, that includes Rutgers, even Illinois. And then on top of the teams, Michigan State, who you've beaten 2 out of the last 3 years. Purdue's got a brand new head coach. I think you have enough games on this schedule when you look at it that if things are trending in the right direction by the time you get to the meat of the season, I think you could find yourself flirting with bowl eligibility and even having a mediocre season. When I say mediocre, it'd be remarkable by Indiana standards, but I think the ceiling, and this may sound ridiculous, just all things considered, if Indiana completely turns things around, and this is not me saying that they're going to, because I don't really have the confidence to say that they would do this, but if best case scenario, I think Indiana can win 6 or 7 games. Will they? I don't know. But I think 7 is probably the ceiling if all the pieces come together the way that Tom Allen is probably hoping they do.
I'm happy to go last because I wanted to hear what you guys said. The entire season, as it always does at Indiana, got to be able to block people. They've been horrific the last 2 days because you can't keep a quarterback upright. You can't do anything when you have 1 second to make something happen. And the last year, what we were hoping for after 2-10 was some fight, show some tenacity. I don't even care if you're incompetent. At least if you go down fighting, that's something. And beating Michigan State at Michigan State and completing 0 passes, that's fighting. Not being able to block a soul in winning at Michigan State is a fight. Beating an Illinois team that turns out to be one of the best surprises in college football, beating them, kind of punching them in the face, deserving to win, that's fighting. They've got a guy in there, and this is no disrespect to the people that were there before, but they have a guy in there that's proven that he can make things happen on the offensive line. He's done it. He's from Wisconsin, right?
I mean, Bob Boasted, or however you say his name.
You want to talk offensive linemen, that's where you start. You start the conversation in Madison. So having a guy that's been in that caliber, you're not going to accept left tackles that get bull rushed every single play. You just don't accept that. So I want to see some competency, some continue the fight up front. You have so much talent on the roster. You really do. Receiver, the quarterbacks, the sky is the limit with these kids. Also, there's so much unknown with the quarterback, but we haven't been able to see if the quarterbacks are any good because we can't block. So the whole season, I mean, there's realistic, you say 6 or 7. I think
reach for the stars, Mitchell. Say what I was afraid to say.
I think it's a little higher. If they can block, they have a ton of talent. Their defense, we'll see. They need to find some important pieces. Their secondary, I don't know where they went. All of a sudden, Garin Catholic was playing secondary last year. I don't understand what's going on there. Garin Catholic, I think, is actually pretty improved. If we want to talk some Indiana high school football, we can. Finally started recruiting to Garin. But it just doesn't – that the defense, whatever. But Kevin Wilson showed that if we can score points, we can play with anybody. I would like to see some of that identity. Let's gunsling it, find some kids that can block, and let the quarterback air it out. Don't be scared to make mistakes. Throw 20 picks this year. I don't care. Throw the ball down the field. Be a threat. When a team can play, I mean, how many times this year did we see a team with athletes play 9 guys in the box, 1 free safety and man on our best receiver? I mean, that felt like how they played every game, and we would just run inside draw behind a line that can't block. So 3 and outs are no good. Throw the ball down the field. I think if we can find some kids that'll make plays, Ty Freifogel came out of nowhere. That kid was out of oblivion. And all of a sudden he's making 50-50 catches, and Indiana's a top 10 team in the country because Penix let it go.
Yeah.
He was made of origami and paper mache and couldn't keep him upright. But then he goes to Washington, not scared to do anything behind a line that can block for him, and look what he's doing. Air the ball out. Let's attack people. You may be 1-11, but you also might scare some people. I think Wisconsin's going to take some time. Luke Fickell's going to create a powerhouse, but, I mean, they were terrible last year. That's not something that's just righted in 1 year. There's some teams, the Big Ten is about as gettable, and there's as little parity as I think there's been in a long time in the Big Ten. You've got Ohio State, Michigan, clearly better than anybody else. After that, Penn State, I guess, is the cream of the next crop, but everybody else kind of stinks. So it's just a fact.
Here's the other thing.
Yeah. They're good, but they kind of stink. Nobody's just a killer like the Michigan States used to be, the Penn States used to be. Penn State's okay. Michigan State is getting better. Wisconsin will get better. But there's not teams on the schedule that if we don't just kind of get lucky on some 50-50 balls, air it out, and throw 5 touchdowns a game with 2 picks, you can beat anybody. Yep. And that's the way that they played when they were beating teams. They weren't scared of anything. Allen got famous for his creative blitzes. They brought a ton of pressure. They gave up. I'd be curious how many yards they gave up in that season a game. It had to be like 450 yards a game. They gave up points. They gave up yards, but they created absolute havoc, bringing safety blitzes from the inside gaps, all kinds of cross with the backers, bringing corners from the field, crazy blitzes that you just don't see, and good things happen. They start throwing interceptions, you get fumbles, you get sacks, you get them off schedule. Teams are going to be able to move the ball in Indiana. That's just the way it is. We don't have the depth that a lot of these other teams have. But we have athletes, and we can be creative. Hell, when I was playing, we had me at slot, and we scored 50 points a game. If you be creative good things can happen. And I just want to see him get back to being creative, being aggressive, air it out, man. We have nothing to lose. We've been an absolute joke of a program, for lack of a better term, joke of a program for the last 2 years. Not going to scare anybody. Nobody's shaking in their boots like they used to. Nobody. Even when we were getting beat by Ohio State's every year, we played Ohio State better than anybody. I want to get back to that. I just want to be scary. I want people to circle that game and be like, we got to be on our stuff if we're going to beat the Hoosiers, because they can come out and score 70 points on us. That's the kind of football I like. I'm an offensive guy, and I think they have that. They have athletes. That Jalen Lucas kid is electric. I think they've made some good additions in the transfer portal, and it's a completely new roster. Air it out, and hopefully Walt Bell will do that. That's a long-winded way of saying I just want to watch something that doesn't make sense.
Well said. One more thing that I want to add to, if they're able to take a step forward, and then we can kind of wrap things up. I don't know if you've seen the way that the conference schedules, not like the week-to-week schedule, and it may even be week-to-week, I don't remember, but when the Big Ten released who the opponents will be once USC and UCLA and Indiana got a major gift in year one of conference realignment. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Michigan. They don't travel out west. They don't play USC. They get UCLA, but it's at home. If Indiana is able to improve this year and take that step forward again, you are looking at a gift of an opportunity next season to basically just hit the NOS and try to get things moving forward the way that they were 2 or 3 years ago. You know what hit the NOS means?
No, hit the NOS. What does I don't know?
It's a great way to, I guess, kind of, because we're out of touch, and I hope we don't.
You mean NOS?
Dumbass joke. Is it NOS or NOS? Hit the NOS from Fast and Furious.
NOS.
I don't know what either of these things mean.
NOS is like the little. I don't even know what it is, but when they're driving away and they're in top gear, they hit this thing that sends the fluid to the engine, and all of a sudden they drive 700 miles an hour. You never played racing games in your Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition? One of the most legendary games ever created.
I know that was on PlayStation 2.
I played like NASCAR 2004 with a steering wheel.
They have the
I played that too. It was so fun.
It was.
My gosh!
The best part was
the basement hard floor with the thing on my lap and pedals.
Yep.
Did you have the pedals too? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Had the pedals. I had like a little desk that I set the steering wheel on, and then when I got pissed off, you could turn off all the settings. I got mad because I wasn't going to win the race because obviously my pit crew sucked. I was driving excellent. I would just turn the car around and then wreck everything.
100%.
Oh, we love those.
God, well, all the kids are the same. Did you ever turn the NCAA games on easy and see how many points you could win by?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Do you know what's the maximum points?
What's the maximum?
There's a maximum amount you can score.
Oh,
I don't know if I ever reached the maximum.
So I would, this is a little background, and we're going over already. The 40 to 45 minutes is wishful thinking. Once my brain gets going, this
is also, and plus we haven't done a podcast in not almost a year, but it's been a long time. So
yeah. So I grew up, my dad's from Miami, Florida. So when I was younger, Miami was sick. When I was just getting to understand college football, this was like the year 2000, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002. If you're familiar with the history of college football, there's no debate who the best team ever assembled was, and it's the 2001-2002 Miami Hurricanes. And so I'm watching these guys play. And when they lost in 2002-2003 to Ohio State on a Ted Ginn drop pass that the ref panicked and called pass interference when it absolutely was not pass interference, actually it was Chris Gamble is the guy's name at Ohio State. Hit him in the face, not even close to catching the ball to win this national championship. Miami guys standing there, whatever. Neither here nor there. After the game's over, I'm sad. I'm 9 years old. 10 years old, I guess. I go to NCAA, turn the settings on beginner, make the quarters 15 minutes long, and I run HB off tackle every single time and run for a touchdown. 80 yards every time, 80 yards every time, 80 yards every time. And I found out in the third quarter that the maximum points is 255 because I was winning 255-0, and they would not let me score any more points.
Wow. I do believe So there's a record in college football that I believe it was Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech beat like Albania College 222-0 or something.
It was 222. I was gonna say, what if it was 255? Then
it might be. I know it was not very nice. It was like 1905. No sportsmanship back then. Can you imagine how fast that coach would have been fired? Oh my goodness. They would have put him in jail. He would have went straight to jail. Instead of the cops escorting him to the handshake line, they just would have put cuffs on him. Put him straight to jail.
I want to know, I would like to go back, if I had a time machine and go back and like, was the concept at the time like, we got to keep running it up on these guys? Or was it like, I don't know, we got to keep scoring as many points because I don't trust our defense here.
Yeah, 100%. And the starters were definitely out there. Like, they can't stop the counter, coach. They can't stop the counter. So we run counter 45 times in a row for a touchdown.
Did they even have substitutes back then?
I don't know. I know that those guys' brains probably weren't very healthy, running in there with the leather on their head.
Here we go. It was 1916. They played Cumberland in October 7, 1916. I'm trying to see if there's anything fun about this game that maybe we
were there any stats?
I bet Cumberland didn't generate many offensive
here we go.
highlights.
63 points were scored in the first and second quarters. 54 was scored in the third. 42 was scored in the fourth.
Wait, that math doesn't add. Oh, 63 in each quarter.
Yeah.
I thought you meant 63 at halftime.
No.
So what was the score? 63, 126.
The final score was 222-0. Georgia Tech had 900.
It was.
Georgia Tech had 922 rushing yards. They didn't pass the ball one time.
Trash.
They didn't pass it all. 0 passing attempts, Georgia Tech.
That
Cumberland had negative 42 rushing yards, and they attempted 18 passes.
And you thought Indiana had trouble on the offensive line.
Oh, my gosh. I'm picturing, like, I don't even know, like, the Giants playing an 8th grade team.
Yeah. This would be like, This is like a little
the defensive lineman for Georgia Tech just picking up the center and like throwing him over his shoulder and then body slamming the quarterback. But they didn't. They wouldn't have been trash talking. I think that's the worst. If you're getting smoked like that, I want somebody to tell me that I'm getting smoked. I think the team that shakes my hand after something like that, I hate those guys even more. That's don't do this to me. Yeah, don't be nice to me. I know I have to get better. 1,000 rushing yards. That's a running clock.
They didn't attempt any passes the whole game either. Georgia Tech didn't.
Can you imagine playing receiver?
LA football. I mean, that's how you do it, right?
Can you imagine playing receiver on that team? Like, coach,
give me
I think we're going to dial on the slant route on this one.
No. Well, time out, though. Here's the question. When was the forward pass legalized?
That's a good question.
Because maybe it was
what the hell was Cumberland doing?
I like that you say legalized like it's marijuana.
Wait.
Yeah. When was it legalized by the Senate?
When did they pass that bill that allowed teams to pass the football forward?
Yeah.
So Cumberland also turned the ball over 15 times. They lost 9 fumbles. They had 6 interceptions.
Oh, so they were throwing it.
They threw it. They didn't throw it very well.
Cumberland threw it 18 times. Georgia Tech didn't throw it at all.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if they actually, like, the forward pass was outlawed at that time and they were just like, we're not going to score any points anyway, so we're just going to break all the rules.
We're down 150.
We just want 1 point. I would have just quit. At what point do you just quit?
That reminds me of when I was in, like, 7th grade. We played – are you guys familiar with the field house in Fishers?
I'm not.
Okay. So it's like a big basketball facility, and we played in a Tuesday night league there, and we played a team called 15 Deep, and we were called the Fieldhouse Hogs. We had pink on our jerseys with a big pig and like pigtails on our shorts, and we were pretty good. But we play this team. We're like shooting half-court shots to warm up for this Tuesday night league game, and these guys are running like drills, defensive slides. Coach very into it. And Sean Heffern, do you guys remember that name? He played at Indiana. He was a defensive lineman in my class. He's from Carmel. He played on my basketball team since we were in like 2nd grade. And Sean Heffern hit a 3 to go up 100-9. We were beating this team 100-9, and he hit a three in the corner in front of their bench to get to 100. He took a step back, sat on their bench, put his foot on his knee, leaned back, and his arm around a kid on their team. It was the most preposterous scene. I can't believe that I didn't there's no video of this, but we ended up beating them 106-19 on a Tuesday night. Like, they had to go home and do their math homework after getting by 80.
And they were a bunch of tryhards too, right?
Oh, they were going for it, man. There's these drills, they're so sweaty. We're like missing layups. Fieldhouse Hogs, man. I love thinking about those guys. That was a legendary squad.
All right, what final thoughts do we have before we put a wrap on the era that was This Week in Indiana Football?
It was fun.
What's it?
We're about
it's not like we're done doing this. It's just it's becoming something else, I guess.
Yeah.
It was real and it was fun, but it wasn't that fun. What happened to producer Joe?
Sums it all up. Oh, great call. Forgot about that. So Joe is doing some stuff with Notre Dame football this year. So he's going back to his native fan base. As we all know, those of you who've been listening since last season, Joe Lincoln was with us, big Notre Dame football fan. He's one of those Notre Dame football, Indiana basketball guys, but we like him anyway. There's plenty of you.
You know what we're going to close this show with?
What we got?
This is what we're going to close the show with. Would you rather be an Indiana football fan that gets full of hope every year, but you're just kind of like hoping for some fight, or be a Notre Dame fan that gets filled with hope every year and your team is just an absolute abomination? Just the biggest waste of a program. You're so excited every year. You play nobody all season, and then you play somebody good and lose by 70. And that's your whole existence. And or
you play Marshall and you lose.
You have all of this hope and anticipation, and you're too good to join a conference because you're Notre Dame and you have this NBC contract, and you're just a waste of time. You play Alabama, lose by 70, somehow get to the national championship for no reason. Would you rather cheer for a team like that, or hope for the losingest program in college football history, which Indiana is, in fact?
So they back to doing that after Kansas has had a couple of good years.
Yeah, first team to 700 losses. So
bring it on.
That's pretty bad. It's a good question. I feel like I don't know, because I feel like here's what I would say. I'm going to counter your argument. I feel like if you were an Alabama fan, wouldn't that get boring? Like I love winning.
No, okay. It would not.
All right. Then
what?
I'm done with it.
No,
that's it.
You go because Alabama, you have all this hope, and they just deliver.
They do. Here's the thing. Is it entertaining to watch you win every game 56-7?
Yes.
Okay.
I turned the difficulty to beat Ohio State by 300. Yes. Winning is what the best.
Maybe. Fair enough. Well, okay, I've never cheered for a team that has been that good, so maybe I'm just not – well, the Braves are that
10-year-old Mitchell?
I'm an Atlanta Braves fan.
Watching the 2001-2002 Hurricanes beat everyone by 70? Yeah.
Fair.
Good year for the boy.
I think what your point is, growing up, I think having the hope – you kind of hope I hope we're okay. And then when you exceed those expectations, it's really exciting because nobody else expects it except you. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Maybe you're right. Winning's probably not ever getting boring no matter what the score is. But I feel like it is more fun when you cheer for a program that doesn't have the expectations, because then it's just all happiness.
So you say cheering for Indiana is better?
I would say yes, I would.
I agree. Because Notre Dame has these expectations every year. And I think the problem with Notre Dame is he's shutting me down.
You have 45 seconds.
This is bananas. What's happening?
It's okay. Here, we're gonna fade it back out, and we'll pretend that didn't happen.
This is bananas. I have one more point to make, John.
I forget Mitchell talks for 3.5 minutes per point, right?
Are we on a podcast? You want to just sit here and look at each other?
What?
Are we on a podcast? Would you rather just sit here and look at each other? I gotta have something to say. You didn't even give me a warning.
That's see. Here's the difference between me being somebody who's in radio. See, whenever I fade, whenever we're at the top of the hour per se, and we're going from 3 to 4 or 4 to 5, whatever it may be. Whenever and obviously this isn't radio. This is just the radio mind and me taking over. The person who's making their last point, I'll fade the music over them. They'll finish their point.
You didn't fade the music. You played the music, dude. You know what you did?
Maybe it's a StreamYard problem. Maybe it's a StreamYard.
You're one of those old cartoons where they have the person on stage and they got that little hook and they pull them off the stage. That's what just happened to me.
It is exactly what happened.
It sounded from my end. It faded up. Maybe on StreamYard didn't sound like.
You know what? I'm pretty sure the person in the hotel room next to me heard that song.
Well, here's what we're gonna do. We're not using the outro music. Period. Then when we're done, we're just gonna wrap it up because honestly,
I'm gonna say go Hoosh.
I thought the outro music was cool, and honestly, it never was cool. We are gonna be switching things up with the way that the intro is and stuff like that, and we're gonna have some new backgrounds, have a new logo, all those kinds of things. But Dustin,
a few things stood out to me. Number one is that your explanation probably took longer than what it would have taken Mitchell to get his point out. Therefore, making the podcast longer.
Dude, I have one sentence to go.
And then the second thing is I think we got to keep the outro music and then make sure Mitchell is always the last one talking, but then blast that music so it just drowns out his voice and nobody knows what he's talking about.
It's weird how, from my perspective, I'm going to do it again. Is that loud?
I mean, that's just the show's over. Like, we're not talking anymore.
How about that? Now it's super loud. This is 100%.
See, this is what you need to do, and then we can't hear Mitchell anymore, and people will just guess that he's still rambling.
I'm curious how it sounds from your perspective, because I just hear it from my perspective, and I'm sure it's different than the audience perspective. So
that was one of the funniest things that's happened.
Again, another great thing about podcasts, you can be this kind of crap can happen. You don't have to cut it. We're putting.
I
need to stop being meta. Here's one thing I want to get better at. I got to stop being meta with this shit. And I know I just said
what does that even
curse
mean?
word, but that's you don't know what being meta means.
It's not
the same thing as out of touch. But being meta is when you're kind of talking about what you're doing, and it's almost like you're breaking the fourth wall kind of thing. Does that make sense? Maybe it's not what I was doing. I don't know.
How many walls are okay? Play the music.
We're not playing music. The music's been retired.
Play the music.
Meta, fourth wall. This feels like, are we in a simulation? Is this something from Fortnite?
See, now this is what you caused. I had one more point about Notre Dame where they have the whole season and one little mess up ruins their whole year. And that was it. And then you started playing the music. And now we're talking about that was it. That's all I had to say.
And then I pulled a Notre Dame where we just had one moment, and I ruined it, just like the Notre Dame season.
See, that was a good little fix. Sorry, Joe.
There we go.
Send it to him. You know who wouldn't have done that to me is Joe.
You're right. He wouldn't have done that.
No, he wouldn't have.
I thought it was going to sound cool, but it just ended up not sounding cool.
I mean, it was just so loud.
It doesn't sound loud. Again, it's a disconnect from the way that it's set up on my computer.
My favorite part was Mitchell's reaction to it, just utter confusion on his end, eyes wide, like am I getting pulled?
I thought it was me
here.
Like this, I have to be playing this music. That's how loud it was. It felt like it was me playing the music.
Anyway, we're never going 6 months without doing a podcast ever again because clearly I'm out of touch with what I'm doing on here.
That's okay. I forgive you. But
this
is going to be
I had a good time. I'm excited. I hope you guys who listen to This Week in Indiana Football will follow us into the next iteration of what this podcast is going to be. Out of touch with. Are we going to call ourselves just our first names? I know we've kind of flirted around with this before. Dustin, are you like being called DS? I don't know how I feel about calling you DS.
You can call me Nighthawk.
Can I call you Nintendo?
You can. I am that old. I'm the oldest one here, so I should be. Okay.
Did you ever have a Nintendo DS? Those things were sweet.
I did.
Oh, I didn't even put that
definitely
together.
had a Nintendo DS, John.
I did not.
No consoles, straight DS. Playing Animal Crossing.
I had an actual Nintendo.
Me too.
Yeah.
You're a gamer, I bet, Dustin. You gamed?
Yeah, growing up, I gamed big time. I have not played a video game in probably 5 years, at least.
That's a miss. Right after we get done with this, I'm logging into Call of Duty. So
nice.
Anyway, we don't have to talk. You know what we're definitely not going to talk about is us having a IU football podcast last year, going through all of that, and then the Big Ten Network coming up with a podcast, and we're not it. We're not going to talk about that at all.
No, we're not. We're just going to leave that be.
We're not going to talk about it.
So anyway, thanks for sticking with us.
This entire outro has been a Midwestern goodbye. Like just Midwestern goodbye. We've been talking about signing off for 25 minutes. And
the good news is
we're still standing in the driveway. Key's not even close to the ignition.
It's been dark.
People who are listening to this, the fact that this isn't live, like they know how long this is when they're watching it or listening to it, whatever it may be. So they know what they're getting into when they click on this. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know it was without a doubt all over the place. And we'll be back on August 2nd as Out of Touch. Hopefully I'll have some new equipment in as we record these first couple of episodes that are coming. I'm really looking forward to kind of just restarting everything and hopefully I'll learn how to do an intro the correct way. Jesus Christ, I've been doing this podcast for 2 years now and I can't do an intro the right way. I know I'm sure it's fun for you all because you don't have to do them. You can watch me just suffer through figuring out how to talk about. Do what?
I'll do it sometime.
What I need to do is
this is Midwest again. We're doing
it again.
We're done.
Mitchell's in the truck right now. He's already on the road.
He's the guy in the second. He's the guy in the second car, just laying on the freaking horn, about to get out and punch a 60.
I'm ready. I'm coming to Brownsburg. I'm fighting Dustin.
All right.
Play the music, John.
That's right. Well, I guess that's what we're doing. We're playing the music. Thanks for listening to the final episode of This Week in Indiana Football. Hopefully, you still have a few brain cells left, unlike myself, after going through this discussion. We have a lot of work to do, but we enjoyed doing this.
That was crazy.
And we're looking forward to another great season of college football. Dustin's making me laugh, and I love it. This is going to be a good time. So thanks for listening, as always. For Dustin, for Mitchell, in spirit, Joe Lincoln, for him as well. We appreciate all that he did for us. This has been This Week in Indiana Football.